Welcome to The Checkout. We catch up with previous Add to Cart guests and ask them 5 quick questions to get to know them better and leave you with a little extra inspiration to get you through your Friday.
Today's checkout features Ben Sandhu, co-founder at Ida Sports. They've designed the first football boot, which has been specifically designed for women's feet. Only a couple of years old, Ida Sports has already sold out of their first range, got a distribution deal with Dick's Sporting Goods, and had Isabel Dawes kick a winning goal for them in the AFLW Grand Final.
All right, Ben, we are going to hit you with 5 quick questions for the checkout to learn a little bit more about yourself. We'll get straight into it. Number 1, what is the weirdest thing you've ever bought online?
I thought about this question. I was going to say 1,250 pairs of football boots. It's probably because that's true. But more personally, I once bought an antique map of southeast London mounted on a wooden block.
Because you like maps in London?
I was living in the area at the time and I bought it as a Mother's Day present. It was just like, this is where I live.
That's awesome. Very cool.
Yeah.
All right, number 2, who is your favourite retailer?
So much like Laura, Patagonia was definitely up there, was the first thought. But I want to give a shout out to a Melbourne brand, Homey. I'm sure a lot of your listeners are familiar. Great brand, great business model, supporting those in need. So Homey's definitely up there for me.
If you can, do you want to give listeners just a little bit more around what they do? Because they do have an incredible story.
Yeah, so Homey's a streetwear brand that gives money with every purchase to people at risk of experiencing homelessness. It's grown super quickly. They're definitely, we launched the business in Melbourne a couple of years ago, and I used to live in Collingwood, so I was right near their store. And I just love what they do, and it's really simple, classic stuff. It looks great. So they strike a really good balance, I think, for the way business can be done.
Yeah, I agree. And I think they just go really under the radar in the retail community in Australia for the impact that they're having.
But for sure. And, ultimately, that's what Laura and I've sought to do, is just let's really deliver on what we promise. And I think they do that really well. So, yeah.
Good stuff.
Huge inspo.
Good stuff. Number 3, which retail fad do you wish was history?
I couldn't remember the name, but I looked up. I think it's like the Coles Minis. But I think
yes.
I think they're dumb. But it speaks to getting rid of these pointless things that just add to waste. In preparation for this podcast, I looked up Coles Minis. Are they still doing that? I hope not. And the entire set is going on eBay for $750.
No way.
And I was like, that's a problem. So whether the Coles is still doing them or not, please, can we stop making pointless little plastic toys that are just going to end up, rotting away or not rotting away for thousands of years?
Well, I think it's similar to what we were talking to Laura about too, is that obviously there's a responsibility for us to manufacture the right stuff, but it also comes back to the customer in saying no to things that aren't sustainable. Yeah.
I think, honestly, that's the challenge for us, is you want to educate consumers to make active choices about this kind of stuff. And when you're producing things, they're not always easy decisions to make. For example, often we have people say, why did you pick kangaroo leather? Why don't you make it out of synthetics? But some of the synthetic materials that are out there are just as, if not more, harmful than sustainably sourced kangaroo leather. So it can be really tricky, but there's some clear-cut examples of just little plastic toys. No need to do it, especially just giving them away as well.
Oh, we'll look back on it in 10 years as craziness.
Yeah, for sure.
Number 4, can you recommend a book or a podcast that our listeners should immediately get into?
So I'm going to go away from how I built this, which Laura mentioned. Great answer. I'm just going to go super silly with this question. 2 silly podcasts. One, if people haven't heard it, it's a podcast called Finding Drago, which is a sort of mockumentary style podcast about tracking down an author of a book. It's called On Mountains We Stand, and it's an unauthorized fan fiction novel about Ivan Drago, the villain from Rocky IV. It is hilarious. I listened to it. I was on a bit of a road trip recently, and I just laughed like my keister off. So good.
Awesome.
Finding Drago is a good one. And then the other one, there's a podcast by the guys from Arrested Development called Smartless. They do it with Sean Hayes, who's from Will and Grace, and it's really funny, good guests, like really light listening. So they're my two, which is not maybe on brand, but
no, they're fantastic. I think Smartless I've listened to and it's great, but you need those ones just to break it up, because if you just listen to the same stuff over and over again, you go nuts.
For sure.
All right, the last one I've got for you. Finish this sentence. The future of retail is
inclusive.
Nice. And you're talking more than female participation.
100%. Another really interesting book, actually, that was a manifesto for what we're doing. There's a book called Invisible Women by Caroline Criado Perez. And, it talks about how women are overlooked in design in all sorts of things. Like the first all-female NASA spacewalk had to be delayed because they didn't have enough spacesuits for women. But, that could apply just as much to people with disabilities, people of colour. There's such a lack of provision for all of us in design. So I think, the future of retail for sure is inclusive.
Well said, Ben. Love it. Thank you so much for joining us on Add to Cart, Ben. Love your story. Love what you're doing with Ida Shoes, and we can't wait to see what's next.
Thanks so much for having me, Nathan. Cheers, mate.
To hear more from Laura and Ben, jump back into episode 80, where Laura and Ben share how they designed the first football boot with no previous footwear experience. They even called it the Franken boot. They also dive into how they got international wholesale distributions with the likes of Dick's Sporting Goods in the US, and how they onboard athletes as a key part of their marketing strategy. Thanks for listening, and until next time, keep adding to cart.